What's going on, everybody? Gustav the 13th here with another video for the week of the 1st of May 2026. It's finally happened. We got two PC suits coming out, the first of them being the Burning Gundam here. 700 rate. As most of these AU suits are, they tend to be in the 700 cost in general. Priority 3, 4-star suit, 7-step banner, all that good stuff. Looking at our skills here, there's not a lot going on in terms of the weapons. So we got machine cannons, but also Vulcans. Two melee suit, as you would expect. You got the blow as well as the saber, and the saber also has a secondary thing where it's a burning slash wave. This actually counts as melee, so similar to the tonfas and stuff that you would have on the Moon, this can interrupt people most of the time, sometimes. And depending on what kind of maneuver armor and other offensive shit they got going on, maybe not. It feels like a bit of a gamble every time. But the bigger draw here isn't really the baseline weapons themselves. In terms of the range, you got 300 on the shoulder machine cannons, you got 250 on the Vulcans. The burning slash itself is 350 as well, and then you got 3200 on the baseline for the burning slash, and the Gundam blow is 2600. Kind of funky pattern with the regular blow. You're probably mostly going to be going in for the slash. And that's mostly because once we get into these other skills down here. But first, usual stuff. Stats. We got 23k health. Ballistic beam and melee resistance are 21, 22, and 35. Range strength is 20, and the melee strength stat of 50 baseline. So pretty easy to get that up there into at least the 60s or 70s without having to do anything super crazy. Also, keep in mind that this is a level 1 suit, so a lot of the level scaling things aren't really going to be relevant here. Movement speed is 160. Top speed is 230, and the thruster gauge is 75, while the turning speed is 90. Baseline 90 is pretty crazy. And a lot of this comes in, again, for some of the skills that we got. This is a mobile trace system, very one-to-one crazy stuff, so it's a little bit easier to give that stuff to it, especially when you think about how limited its initial kit is. Part slot wise, we have close, medium, and long being 24, 16, and 12. And a decent laundry list of skills going on here. So Assault Booster 4, Melee Composite System 4, High Spec AMBAC 2, Maneuver Armor 4, Power Accelerator 3, Heavy Attack D. So when selecting a weapon compatible with Heavy Attack D, hold down the attack button to charge it, release the attack when fully charged, will execute a melee attack, boost powers, and priority. Damage recoil is lessened when hit mid-attack. Also, when keeping the attack button held down when fully charged, damage reaction from range attacks is reduced, and also be used while in mid-air. So, a little bit more resistance while you're trying to line that up for the burning finger and all that good stuff, because in the beginning mode, you really don't have any of that to work with. Aerial melee system. So, actually, the funny thing is that outside of the saber and a little bit more, once you get into the other modes, both of them count. The aerial melee, it's pretty nice. We have high performance thruster control system, emergency evasion system 3, anti-blast stabilizer 1, backbinder special cushioning, which puts the backbinder at 35%. High performance counter program, so a stronger counter at 50%. And then we got the more unique stuff. The School of the Undefeated of the East. So increase infantry movement speed, high speed movement, and quick ascent. The infantry movement's really funny, but you know, it makes sense. You gotta be a rather fit and strong pilot, right, to pilot this thing. Also reduces thruster consumption during high-speed movement, and you'll see that even in our baseline mode. Even with the fact that it's under 80 for the thruster, it sips boost more often than not. Now, when you start getting into our hyper mode, that changes a little bit. Mobile trace system. When destroying a mobile suit, cooldown time is reset for all melee weapons, immediately rendering them usable. Note that this skill is not compatible with melee type or ranged weapons. So yeah, they're also really trying to tie the gimmick to the actual melee and not the melee ranged, which is a bit unfortunate, again, considering the setup for this and the way that the melee in the baseline form works. Hyper mode. When dealing damage to an enemy mobile suit with a melee weapon, the fighting spirit increases. Pressing the touchpad with the fighting spirit maxed out activates this skill, fully recovering unit HP and HP for all parts. When attacking with a melee type range weapon, fighting spirit will not increase. While activated, your unit's attack power and mobility increase, and the performance is altered for some weapons. Also, maneuver armor skill changes to high maneuver armor, level 1, and Flat Booster 1 is provided. Be careful of that Flat Booster 1. Because even though the mobile tree system and all that does help you to SIP boost, Flap 1 sucks, and you're gonna burn through your stuff really fast if you try to get too into that. Now, when we get into the final mode, which is like after a decent countdown, I think like maybe 20 seconds or so, we'll look when we go into practice. You can pop off again for Mekyo Shisui. After maintaining hyper mode for a certain amount of time, pressing the touchpad will fully recover HP and HP for all parts, and your unit will go into Mekyo Shisui mode. While this skill is activated, thruster consumption is reduced when starting / during high speed movement, and damage from ranged attacks and stagger due to cumulative damage is reduced. Also, mobile firing system level 1 skill is provided, which is important because you get a different version of the Burning Slash, which is the Sekihaten Kyoken. And then Flat Booster skill is increased to level 2. And taking damage from melee weapons when in Alter Performance, melee resistance is partially nullified for enemy units. So yeah, they're giving you a lot if you actually survive long enough to pull that off. And then we look at the expansion here, we got +1 to melee resistance, +1 to melee modifier, +100 to unit HP, and Complex expansion comes in at the regular upgrades at 3940. If you unlock the next two, we have +5 to melee modifier and reduces melee damage to HP by 5% when topless, so melee defensive system. So, very straightforward kind of suit. Let me make sure that I got my buttons for the other bullshit in here. And I'll show this off a little bit in practice as well. Anytime. Come on. I believe. There we go. Okay. So I'm telling you, right out of the gate. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 3, 9, 6. Oh. So you're at like 68 out of 120 for that. Not a lot of accumulation, not a lot of tracking, and because there's a lot of stuff at this cost that tends to jam stuff anyway, you're not going to get that ASL to really help you. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Literally 10 shots with the fucking regular Vulcans. Very strong with the accumulation there. And it's going to have to be, because like I was saying, you got to get that fighting spirit up. Now, thankfully, if you're managing to land a couple like heavy attacks, or not heavy attacks, but down swings or whatever, it's not too bad. The beam wave, not really a lot to it. Can stuff some things, decent amount of hit on it. Understand that a lot of people are going to be running really high melee resistance and other stuff anyway. So it really is there just to kind of set you up for different things, and then once you're done with all that, you pop. And there you go, you get 30-second countdown until Mekyo Shisui is ready. As you can see there, the flaps does suck. The beam sword doesn't necessarily change, although you do have that. You're able to just swing on both like 4 times because of the combo control and all that. The one thing that you do get in this one in particular is that you can do your burning finger stuff, start grabbing people. Decent amount of damage, but as you can see there, it's all on the right. There's pretty much no hitbox off to the side of that, unless you bring it in a little bit on the inside. Now Mekyo Shisui is ready. And here's where we actually get the fun shit. So we get some extra punches. The weird narrative C kick turns into like a long flying kick. And then the range turns into that Sekihaten Kyoken, which actually has a decent cooldown time. It's not that bad. But it's a lot of windup. That's why they give you that fucking immobile firing system. You get like a twirling downswing for the downswing on the saber. Very reminiscent of the FB a little bit. Super over the top. Interestingly enough, there's a little bit of downturn on that, but not too much. It's literally just because by the time that he actually does the kick, you're already starting to come down a bit. Whee! And that's going to be a big thing for this suit, because it's a big anime over-the-top shitter suit. A lot of its animations are really drawn out and slow. There's a shit ton of telegraphing that happens for most of them. I don't know, I'll show off the specs a little bit more in there. I don't think this actually has. Yeah, no. So it's just a grab, which is fine. I actually like having the traversal, the regular downswing on here a little bit more. But that is the long and short of the abilities and the way that things tend to look when you're doing this suit. Now, getting into the nitty gritty, even though that all looks fun and neat, I'm telling you right now, unless you're already a heavy melee head, or, you know, have gotten some practice on PC, or generally just like this kind of suit, even if you like G Gundam, in which case you probably already spun for this, in which case you probably may or may not agree that this is a rough sell at 700 just because of the nature of how the modes in this work. The amount of hustle that you need to do to get into the regular mode and then survive for 30 seconds in a game where the matches are only 8 minutes. That's a lot of time on one life. Especially considering that they seem to really stack things against you being able to set things up for yourself in the beginning mode, because you don't have a mobile firing system in your baseline mode. You don't get a mobile firing until you get into Mecha Shisui, and that's only because they don't want people being upset from getting hit out of their Sekiyats and Gyokens all the time. But that's your main, you know, the Burning Slash is your main in. Because even though you have a decent amount of accumulation on the Vulcans, there's a lot of stuff that has nano-laminate armor, phase shift armor, a bunch of other things that resist ballistic specifically. You have no kind of ASL or anything on the Burning Slash. No mobile firing to kind of keep you safe while you're trying to do it. So you are going to have to be a little bit more of a scavenger in the beginning. And thankfully you do get some health each time you do pop a mode. So hopefully you don't lose too much in the first, you know, attempt to get into the mode, and then you just gotta kind of wait things out and keep the pressure up. But again, that's kind of rough because you don't want to, you know, dither around too much, because you still need to take advantage of that extra attack up in the initial mode, because otherwise you're just not contributing anything. And I think that's kind of my issue with this suit. If you want to have consistent fun in this, you do have to be a little bit more careful and a little less active once you start popping and getting things done, which feels kind of backwards. Because otherwise you're just gonna burn yourself at, you know, at both ends, and, you know, maybe you bring some people down with you, but more than likely not. You know, this is one of those suits that is a real pain in the ass for us to get a really good round in, and it feels almost like it's a little bit too conditional despite having a really high potential mark. But there are a lot of suits that are like that, and we don't necessarily call those suits meta, right? You know, people will pro clutch all day and be like, well, you just gotta be really good at it. And it's like, yeah, or I could just play something that takes like half the effort and still feels just as good. And I'll be real with you, you know, for as much as people bitch about the Barbatos and stuff, feels pretty rough to be dealt with by them while running around in this thing. We did get a match that we did okay-ish in, but brother almighty, did it take us a hot minute to get there. And even though I will say that this mode, when you get in a Mecha Shisui, it's really fun, the juice is not worth the squeeze. But we'll get into that match right around here.
もうすぐ戦場だ。準備ができたやつから出撃しろ。 しい。戦勝だ。モビルスーツが落とされた。再出撃の場所と方法を選択しな。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。行ってこい。味方が落とされたか。戦闘継続だ。各自走行。味方が落とされたか。モビルスーツが落とされた。味方が落とされたか。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。行ってこい。落とされたか。まだか。小賢しいやつね。継続だ。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。各自走行。機体が限界か。やられる前にだ。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。中継地点が敵に奪われている。中継地点の制圧を確認。味方が落とされたか。行ってこい。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。自分でか。小賢しいやつね。味方が落とされたか。機体が限界か。やられる前に脱出しな。気をつけろ。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。味方の救援信号をキャッチした。味方が落とされたか。自分でか。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。特殊効果を発動。機体の戦勝画像。敵モビルスーツを撃破。 境は拮抗している。まだやれるな。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。鍛えた限界か。やられる前に脱出しな。
So much jamming happening right now.
作戦時間残り2分。拠点の重要度が上昇してよ。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。落とされたか。モビルスーツが落とされた。
Oh, get it, get it. Oh, nah, he got stopped. Damn. Oh. Man, this shield's eating him like a lot. Ugh.
作戦時間残り1分。負ける気がしないね。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。機体の損傷だ。
Oh my god.
モビルスーツが落とされた。味方が落とされたか。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。行ってこい。味方が敵モビルスーツを撃破。
I don't know if he's there or not. I can't really see because of my radar.
味方が落とされたか。戦闘継続だ。作戦時間終了。
Ugh. What a pain even then.
私たちの勝ちだ。よし、帰るぞ。
Oh, our bug actually got in there a lot. Damn.
今回の戦闘方針。
Yeah. I don't doubt that this is going to be a highlight suit. I'm sure a lot of people are going to buy it regardless of whether it's good or not, but I don't really think it's that great. If you already got a lupus, don't worry about this.
Good work.
Because holy shit, that was too much work. Ugh. And that was our match in the Burning Gundam after hours of pulling teeth in this fucking thing to try to get something halfway decent going. Now, like I said, in general, if you're trying to use this as an everyday suit, no. You're gonna see a lot of people put up highlight reels where they're doing crazy damage because this is a high potential suit. They have to make the melee damage payoff really good because otherwise people are gonna see that shit and be like, okay, so I did all that and then I don't even get to do big dumb damage. Like, look at that shit, 10k just for like regular shit. We're not even talking about the heavy attack. And honestly, the heavy attack is more so thematic than it is practical or really necessary just compared to the regular shit you can do. Also, this doesn't really have any like space on it, you know what I'm saying? Don't worry about the splash on that. You have to aim it a little bit more than not at all. But I think seeing this suit and seeing the kind of feast or famine going on with it and seeing other people go through the same thing really does go to show, at least to me, that like for as many people that complain about, you know, the heavy stagger missiles and all that other stuff on the Barbatos, it really also highlights an issue that raids really still don't belong in this cost. You know, the Destinies are tearing us up. We just got an adjustment for, of all things, the fucking Saikimi Bawu that is both a help and a hindrance to teams, because this thing's getting strapped by a couple lock-ons really easy, because it's really easy to mod those into being ranged, you know, dealing machines in a upsetting kind of way. Similarly, they're not very good at maintaining front lines, so you really do still have to have folks up front maintaining pressure for them, or just hope that you have one that knows how to, you know, be both midline and close and just really round themselves out. Similarly, I wouldn't really suggest going in with multiple burnings. This isn't really like the Barbatos where, like, no matter what mode it is, it's doing some bullshit. You know, there's no instant knockdown. There's no heavy stagger on the burning slash. You know, you start to get some better stuff once you get into the Fighting Spirit Wave. I love that it calls it the Fighting Spirit Wave in the little thing here. But it takes too long to get there. It takes way too long to get to the good shit. You know, so this is one of those situations where, like, I wouldn't really recommend this suit, but it's a suit that we've been waiting for on PlayStation for so long, especially as a G Gundam suit, that if you're watching this by the time it comes out, you've probably already gotten it and don't care, right? It's just cool that it's here. And again, high potential suit, so I'm sure people are already good into that and are extra excited to try to be one of those guys with the highlight reel. But outside of that, you know, unless you're really on that level, you're probably going to end up doing your team a disservice by trying to run around in this thing and LARPing as a fucking mobile fighter. Unfortunate to say, and I can only imagine that once we get into Seed Week with the Freedom, that's probably only going to get worse, because I wouldn't even really say that that's a potential suit compared to, oh, I don't know, the Destiny that's already running around and giving this thing a hard time alongside a bunch of other bullshit that's either gotten buffed or is already, like, strong and gross at this cost. But interesting, right? They're finally making good on their talks from the past about getting in there with the AU suits. I think the one that everyone really wanted and is just kind of using these to wait for was actually the TV Wing Gundam, because even on PC, that was considered to be a pretty busted suit. And I think once we get that, that'll be an even bigger litmus test to just what PC considers to be strong, and if it's going to be able to hold its own against all of the usual bullshit that's here now, and what's going to come by the time that it actually lands in 700. So I don't think this suit's going to go anywhere. I think it'll have its adopters. It is strong, like I said, but for the most part, you're probably going to still see a lot of Barbatos. You're probably going to see a lot more midline, you know, generals, because of the Bawu and some other things. The Moon's making a bit of a comeback. The chunky tank suits are still there. Like, everything else hasn't really changed within these last couple of days, and I don't really expect that to change in the next couple more either. So, fun thing. Kind of glad I didn't spin on it myself, especially since this is another 7-step banner in a period where we've already had like 5+ and we have one more coming. Insane to me, right? But, you know, good luck if you haven't spun yet. Maybe you're waiting for the monthly turnover or whatever. Not super necessary, but definitely fun once you get into the good meat and potatoes of the Shisui mode itself. So, that'll be the long and short of it for the Burning. Until next time, I hope you guys have a good rest of your morning, night, or whatever, and I'll talk to you all in the next video.